So in this video, we're going to go over all the parts that I have on the truck. Basically what it took to be able to go 10s with a stock long block 4.3 liter V6. So before we get into today's video, I'm going to clean up this mess that I forgot to after finishing up all the testing that we did on the mill last time. So, one second. Got it all vacuumed up, cleaned off the mill. Looking much better. I'm gonna push the truck outside, do a nice cold start, walk around, and go over the current state of the truck, the parts that I have on it, and basically how I did a 10-second pass. Alright, let's get HP tuners up. Here we go. Coolant temp 45, air intake temp 46. It's pretty chilly out. It's probably got about 50% ethanol in it, so it's not as bad as it could be. Definitely could be easier with pump gas. Too bad, only second try. So while the truck is warming up, we'll go over the parts that I have in it that took me to get a 10-second pass. It has a Garrett first gen GT 3582R with a 0.82 AR housing. That's connected to the engine with a custom stainless exhaust manifold. It has a cast iron marine intake manifold, which I upgraded with 80-pound Siemens Deca injectors. I'm running E85, so I really needed those bigger injectors. I also have a Walbro 450 in-tank pump and a Racetronics hot wire kit to supply power to that 450. So one other thing on the fuel system is I did actually put a flex fuel sensor. I wired it into the stock ECU as well. I enabled flex fuel, so I can actually put anything from full E85 to regular, 93 pump gas. I haven't done any crazy tune changes where I'm pulling or adding timing for flex fuel. Really, I just wanted to be able to have that for the winter so I can pop some pump gas in there to try and make sure the fuel system doesn't corrode up. I'm running a 3-bar map sensor on a custom operating system from EFI Live. I've actually done some custom modifications on top of that to the operating system. I've actually added launch control into the stock ECU, which this is still running the original P59 stock ECU. As you can see, still running that. I do have a watt box wired up, which was before I actually programmed the stock ECU to do the 2-step. But now I basically just set the watt box at a higher RPM and I'm just using the stock ECU. I've also included a boost builder function into the stock ECU. So basically when I'm in launch control, based on, vehicle speed, TPS, engine RPM, it'll cut ignition. But also while it's in launch control, I have a timing offset, so I can pull timing, I can add timing only when in launch control. And I also added a custom timed retard. So after launching, if the launch condition was exited based on letting go of the brake, because I also have the brake pedal sensor that's wired into the computer for the stock trans control, I included that into the launch control parameters. So if that is the reason that the launch control was exited, then I will initiate a timed retard. So from 0 to 4 seconds, I think I put it out to, because I figured, why would I want to pull timing past 4 seconds? So those two custom modifications, along with the launch control, I think helped me get to a 10. But whenever we go over the log, we can really see, where that comes into play. I'm not going to give out, timing advanced numbers, because every combination is unique. I'm using the foot brake, so I think that's kind of unique to this combination. And also, how many people out there are trying to turbo their V6? It's just not common. So why give out numbers that totally may blow up someone else's engine when I'm just doing this for the first time? So inside the engine is 100% stock, from basically valve covers to oil pan. The only modification that I had to do was actually the head gaskets. So as I was trying to hit my 10-second pass, I actually popped one of the stock composite head gaskets and started pushing coolant out the overflow, and basically tore it down in a couple days, replaced it with some cheap Felpro MLS style gaskets I bought off Amazon. Used the stock head bolts, torque to yield head bolts, just torqued them back down, put it back together. Previously to doing that, I had ran an 1108 and an 1109, and then it started pushing coolant. So that's when I replaced the head gaskets. But other than that, it's got NGK BR7EF plugs, basically the same thing that all the LS guys run. It's the exact same plug, so it's a pretty cold plug, even though it's cast iron heads. It works pretty well. I haven't had any issues. Surprisingly, I haven't had any spark blowout issues. I thought I would, especially with dumping all the E85 in. It's running fairly rich currently, but I really haven't had any issues. It does have an aftermarket coil. It looks like a Screaming Demon. It came on the truck, so I didn't put that on there, but I haven't had any issues with any coil or spark issues. The transmission is pretty much a bone stock 4L60E transmission that I rebuilt in my garage. It's basically the first time I've ever had a transmission open. Fully rebuilt top to bottom, power washed it out. It only has a shift kit. I couldn't quickly get the parts that I really wanted, as far as like aftermarket better clutches or aftermarket frictions. So I wound up just getting a stock rebuild kit. Everything looked good as far as clearances. I did put a HD2 shift kit in it. I think I upgraded maybe one or two other parts rather than putting, stock wore out parts back in. I think I replaced a plastic piston, accumulator piston, with an aluminum one, and then really just put new gaskets in it, some O-rings, and it also has a eBay 245 millimeter torque converter. It's supposed to be rated for 2800 to 3200 RPM stall. I really didn't have much luck launching at anything higher than 2500 RPM on this combination. My previous torque converter, I would run up to 3000 on the foot brake, but I really couldn't even push this thing over 2500 RPM without it starting to spin the tires. that was pretty disappointing because I think it potentially hurt my 60-foot times. But even with this tighter converter, I was actually able to get my best 60-foot times that I've ever had. It still has the stock 7.5-inch 10-bolt rear end. The only modifications that were done to it, it was also done before I got it, but it has a Eaton True Track, still has the stock axles. The suspension, like I said in my last video, is upgraded. So I've actually replaced a lot of the front end components, as far as I put new Viking double adjustable coilovers on the front. I put Viking double adjustable shocks in the rear, which I really haven't tuned that much. I definitely helped in the front end. I was able to slow how quickly the front end came up on the launch, and I think that helped a little bit. Other than that, I really haven't had too much issues with the suspension. I normally run some Race Star wheels, a 275 drag radial on the rear. These are really just a set of street wheels and tires that I wanted to run. Trying to go for the turbo V6 clone kind of deal. This past winter, I custom made my own aluminum core support to try and drop some weight. I think I only wound up dropping like 20 pounds. Being that this is basically an all cast iron engine, I really do need to try and save weight, but I think it looks nice, and I'll throw a picture up.
Look at this photograph. Every time I do, it makes me laugh.
But I run a velocity stack and replace this headlight so that I can get fresh air right to the turbo, because I've had issues in the past at the track when you're just waiting in line and the IATs just start to keep rising and rising and rising, and that helped out significantly, just pulling fresh air from the outside. I did also upgrade to an Amazon purchase aluminum radiator. I think that helped a little bit with the coolant temperatures, just really in like traffic and stuff. It seems like the turbo kit, you know, just puts off a lot more heat in the engine bay, and I think this just helped keep the engine temps a little bit more consistent. Also installed some catch can lines with a remote catch can. And the other thing I guess I forgot to mention was with the transmission, I actually have a remote, pretty large transmission cooler. And the battery is mounted back here in the bed. A little hard to see. Yeah, it looks like we're up to temp. I'll put you over here and maybe give it some revs. So yeah, that's pretty much the truck in a nutshell. I have tons more modifications planned. I have some already in progress.